2025 was certainly a year that happened. This thing was pretty good. Game Pass committed seppuku.
$19.99 a month, nigga. You get free per.
And, this. So it's gotta be pretty good. That being said, this was a very interesting year for media specifically, and that goes for games, movies, TV, you name it. This is everything that I remember consuming in the year 2025, and that includes stuff from before 2025. I'm gonna start with the games from 2025 in a random order, ending with the worst and then the best, and then I'll briefly go over the games from before, movies, TV shows, etc. Hi, Editing Joe here. This video ended up being way longer than I thought it would be, so this first one is just going to be the games from 2025, and then I'll upload the other parts separately. Anyway, back to the video. And then at the very end, I'll show you how everything is ordered color-coded. So yeah, let's get into it. I haven't played that many character action games, but as I've gotten older, I've started to realize that it's one of my favorite genres, and I'm happy to say that Khazan goes above and beyond. Khazan is the first game I've experienced personally that perfectly blends character action with Souls without compromising either. I feel like a lot of the mixed reception this game got were from people that were only treating it as a Souls game and not a blend of character action. But anyway, this game has probably the best mechanics in any Souls-like. The defensive options are all perfectly balanced and have a good reason to use any of them instead of just one being objectively the best like most others. Dodging and perfect dodging provide a positional advantage instead of doing damage and posture damage like parrying, but having that positional advantage leads you to getting to their back, which gives you more damage multipliers and so on and so on. And then you have parrying, perfect parrying, and then I forget what the other one is called, but there's like a hard-ass parry with a very small window, and dude, that shit, when you learn the timing on that, super hype. But yeah, all that stuff combined with your actual moveset make this the best paced combat in any game I've ever played. You have so many options to choose from skill trees and armor set bonuses, a decent amount of weapons that have unique movesets, and there's a ton of depth for each weapon. But yeah, choosing the best defensive option that gives you the best punish while weaving in strings in between your parries and your dodges while managing your stamina and your posture gauge and action points. Everything about the combat in this game is fucking peak. The RPG systems are also pretty good. You have a handful of weapons with unique movesets, and the skill trees for the weapons also have a ton of depth. I experimented with each of the weapons on my first playthrough, but ended up settling on the dual wield, and I feel like I only ended up mastering like half of what that weapon offers throughout my 100% run. There's so many playstyles for each weapon, it's absurd. And then you have normal skill trees that have a ton of depth, and you have armor sets that play into certain playstyles, and then you have like a God of War rage mode that basically functions like an additional weapon, and that has its own skill tree. Like, it's great. But combat is only as good as the things you're beating in the face, and I'm happy to report that all of the bosses in this game, save for one that was literally just a bunch of ads in a hallway, are great. A lot of the later bosses, and especially the true ending final boss, go so hard it's insane. I'd love to show some of them, but they are mostly spoilers because this game actually has a story. And while the story itself isn't anything to write home about necessarily, the voice acting being so good across the board was enough for me to care about what's going on. It's not my fault Ben Starr is only in peak apparently. And the bosses also don't really have any bullshit moves at all. I'm the type of person that will just limit test and throw myself at a boss and seeing what works and what doesn't, and the AI and all that stuff, and there were very few, if any, times at all during my 100% playthrough that felt like bullshit when I got hit. The game is extremely well made, and the icing on top is that the music is also surprisingly amazing as well. And once again, I would love to throw up some example tracks of my favorites, but a lot of those are late game spoilers, and I don't want to ruin that for you. My literal only negative about this game is that it's arguably too long, and that's a weird criticism to have. The main story is probably like 20 hours, give or take, if you don't do any of the side content. But there's just so much side content in this game. So that's barely even a critique. It's not like it's mandatory, but like I said, 100% of the game, it took me like 45 hours to do everything. And I enjoyed basically every minute of it, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little burnt out towards the end of my playthrough. But once again, that stuff is completely optional, barely even a critique. At the end of the day, I'd have to really sit down and compare the two, but Lies of P and now Khazan comfortably sit at the pinnacle of Souls games, even surpassing FromSoft in some ways. If there's one thing you take from this video, please play this game. It went under the radar so hard, but it's genuinely one of my favorite games now. This game fucking rules.
I got your number and I'm calling just to say fuck you.
え、お母さん？
Yeah, well, wait till I draw your suicide note in your own blood, you bunny fucking...
Silent Hill F is the sequel to Silent Hill E, and was written by the guy who made this, so you already know it's going to be a masterpiece. My first Silent Hill game was the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I was mostly fine with it until the halfway point, and then it ended up being the most drawn-out game I've ever played in my fucking life. That being said, Silent Shill F is pretty tight as far as length goes, being around 8 to 10 hours on a first run, but it's still a bit much for what the game actually offers. I'll start off with the positives. First of all, kudos to this game for being an Unreal Engine 5 game that doesn't run like absolute butt butter. There were definitely a few stutters throughout my playthrough, especially when enemies would do a new move for the first time, but it's definitely more tame than something like Borderlands 4 from this year. And the setting being a small Japanese town from the 60s was surprisingly pleasant to explore. I genuinely enjoyed the first hour of the game where you were just running down the streets for a while. The mechanics of the game are also like relatively solid, but everything surrounding them kind of conflicts with the ideas they set. Basically, you have zero reason to engage in any of the combat systems, which is also what the game places a big emphasis on. You have very limited item stacks, you have weapon durability to worry about, and you also have money to manage to buy upgrades. This makes ignoring every enemy you come across genuinely the optimal way to play the game, because you can just sell everything you pick up, which frees up your inventory to pick up more things that you wouldn't normally be able to if you had a full inventory, so that you could sell those, and then buy upgrades and stock up for the mandatory fights, which, oh my god, there are so many. Especially towards the end of the game, it just goes absolutely crazy, and it's just too much, honestly. It's just baffling to me that they went out of their way to make all of these combat mechanics just for the best way to play to be ignoring literally everything. Also, the puzzles are kind of whack, but that's just kind of my vibe from my limited Silent Hill experience. I can't tell if it's like a translation issue or if I'm just brain dead, but a lot of these puzzles were not that intuitive and required external knowledge of like plants and shit. But the section where you have to gather the locker codes in the school level was actually kind of cool. But my main problem with the game comes down to the story and the way it's told. Basically, the storytelling and all of the themes are so obvious and beat over your head from start to finish with the subtlety of massaging your ballsack with a jackhammer. Women were treated poorly, especially in this time period. Wow, I couldn't figure that out from the first 1 second of the game. Wow, you're given pills that look like stereotypical painkillers and are made out to be your primary source of healing? I wonder what ramifications that will have. That's never been done before. Wow, there's a literal pregnancy monster and the main character says, "I'll never end up like you." I wonder what that means. I wonder what you're trying to tell me. Subtlety is dead. Silent Hill 2 at least trusted the player enough to piece together what's going on and left some things ambiguous. I genuinely appreciated that. But this game beats you over the head with literally everything. It just tells you everything instead of showing you. And what the game is trying to tell you is fine. The themes are fine. It's just not really original and isn't told in an interesting way because it just tells you everything flat out. I will say this though. Believe it or not, I am a white guy, in case you couldn't tell from me talking about video games on the internet. I acknowledge that women, and especially Japanese women, could connect with the game on a deep level, which is good. You can like the game. The problem is that the themes are just not that deep, and the game just flat out tells you instead of showing you 99% of the time. Greg Glintstone has a fantastic video called Silent Hill F Doesn't Know When to Shut Up, and it pretty much aligns with all my issues with the game. Definitely check it out. So what are we left with? The story is ass, the gameplay is fine but there's no reason to engage with it, and the puzzles mostly suck. On top of all that, the game expects you to like it enough to replay it 3 to 4 times to get the actual story. In my opinion, there's just very little reason to play this game as opposed to just watching somebody play it or watching the cutscenes, but at the end of the day, as a product, it's still like a 5 or a 6. It's still like a passable game. And I know a lot of people really like it, which is fine. But personally, it really didn't offer a lot in basically any department, and the way everything in the story was just explicitly shown and not told really made it uninteresting from beginning to end.
I said I played these games before!
When Lies of P came out, it instantly raised the bar for what a Souls-like could be. It was the first Souls-like that matched and even surpassed FromSoft quality. It was brutally difficult, had excellent mechanics, but also did this weird thing where you actually give a fuck about the characters you're interacting with. They did eventually buff the player and do some nerfs to some of the bosses, and in my opinion they were antithetical to the game. For example, they nerfed the HP on the King of Puppets, when the literal entire point of that boss is being an endurance test? Please stop balancing your game about Reddit and Steam community pages, I'm fucking begging. Anyways, the DLC finally came out this year and it had big shoes to fill, and I'm happy to report that this shit is fantastic. Overture's story expands upon the lore hinted at from the base game in a great way, and its story stands perfectly fine on its own regardless. I only have some minor complaints with this game, and it's that some areas and mobs are purposely designed just to piss you the fuck off, and it makes certain runbacks really annoying. The HP values on some of the bosses still feel too low, but that's kind of a result of the nerfs of P from the base game philosophy. And then the alligator boss is kind of just whatever. But most of the bosses are fantastic here, with the final boss IMO being the single best boss in any Souls game, flat out. I'm gonna throw up a spoiler warning for this, but I need to talk about it. Arlecchino is the full package. You have lore build-up throughout the main game and the DLC. You got one of the best fight themes for any boss I've ever played. When you get your ass handed by this boss, and then you hear the tick-tock at the beginning of the soundtrack every time you walk through the fog door, that shit's hype. The arena's awesome. You can help Leia up to act as a summon for this boss, and dude, this is like summoning Egon for the Bale fight in the Elden Ring DLC, levels of hype. You can look up a video of all the dialogue that can happen in this fight, and it's like 8 to 10 minutes long of unique dialogue between Arlecchino and Leia, or him to you. I would 100% recommend backing up your save and just fighting him with Leia at least once for the dialogue, and especially that crit animation. Holy fuck. And beyond that, the boss is extremely difficult. This boss is like what Consort Radahn wanted to be and more. You experience characters at their prime, but it actually feels earned, and they feel as strong as they're hyped up to be and more. Like, this boss is insanely fucked up, but it's not bullshit. You have to really dig in and limit test the AI in Phase 1 to truly understand it and be safe, and optimize your openings and all that. It's great. And then Phase 2 is just balls to the wall. The transition to Phase 2 is also just peak. It's dethroned the Ludwig transformation in Bloodborne for being the best transition of all time. Like, this fight is genuinely the whole package. It's like a 10 out of 10 in every single department. It's peak. And then there are certain things you can do in the DLC that affect the present timeline, because this is a time travel thing. The cat and a painting and all this stuff. Like, there are plenty of NPC quests. This DLC really has it all. It's fantastic. Would highly recommend if you played Lies of P back in the day, or if you're just getting into it, 100%. Probably the best Souls-like DLC. This shit's amazing. Borderlands 1 is up there for one of the most influential games of all time, heavily shaping the landscape for the modern looter shooter. Borderlands 2, in my opinion, is still one of the greatest games of all time if you're talking about sheer value. And then Borderlands 3 is an affront to God. Randy really had to cook for Borderlands 4, and I'm happy to say that it's mostly good. The story is more grounded and strikes a good balance between goofy, serious, and cringe dialogue this time around. All the Vault Hunter designs are pretty good, and the sheer amount of skills in each tree is absolutely insane. It really seems like there are more skills in one tree for one character than an entire character had in the other games. The movement is fluid enough. I wish the slide was a little better, but the jetpack and the air dash stuff is all pretty fun. Guns feel nice and crunchy. The side quests were surprisingly good in this game, and thankfully they didn't butcher any of the previous characters like they did in 3, so that's good. First of all, the performance in this game was completely unacceptable at launch. This shit gave Monster Hunter Wilds and Jedi Survivor a run for its money, and Randy's response on Twitter definitely didn't help anything. Premium game, by the way. The UI navigation on keyboard and mouse is just really bad for some reason. Also, you hit level cap like way too fast in this game. There's a ton of content to do, admittedly, but I hit level 50 before I was done with like the third area, and it's just not enough skill points for how many skills there are in the game. Obviously, they're going to increase it with DLC like they always do, but just at launch, it really didn't feel that great. And then lastly, the end game in this game sucks my dick. Grinding your UVH level is the most unfun shit I've ever done in my life, and then you also have to do wildcard missions as like the real quote-unquote end game. I'm the kind of person that does everything before moving on to the next thing, so I basically had to redo a ton of world bosses and shit just to get that level up. And then your reward for doing that is wildcard missions, which are just so awful. Like the end game of Borderlands 4 is just redoing story missions where you can't skip dialogue. Like the first one I had to do was the one where you had to like fix the town and set up the generators and all that shit. It takes like 10 minutes of just doing nothing basically. And then the twist is that there are random modifiers on the enemies that are mostly really annoying. Like only being able to kill things by headshotting them, or them creating a black hole when they die or whatever. And the reward for doing these things is not great, because the legendaries in this game are also really boring. I don't know what happened. There are so many iconic legendaries from 1, 2, and even 3, but in Borderlands 4, every time I got a legendary, it was just really underwhelming, to be honest. I don't understand. All of this leads to the game being pretty solid for a first playthrough and character, but everything after that is horribly anti-replay value. Most people I've talked to and seen online, they completed one character and then dropped the game. And even the Borderlands content creators, shocker, are all just making Borderlands 2 videos again. But they did take a lot of steps in the right direction for this game. All they need to do is iron out the performance in the end game, and this will be pretty solid. But Randy, get off Twitter, please. I'm fucking begging. TFT is the closest we've ever gotten to a PvPvE roguelike, and it's genuinely one of the greatest games ever made in my opinion. At its best, it's a thought-provoking deep strategy game with so many layers that make Shrek cry, but at its worst, it's a horrible RNG fest where 6 morons look up the best comp on meta TFT and force it, even though you're the only asshole with the opener for it. Mort Dog, fuck you, suck me. That being said, 2025 was just about the most varied year for TFT I've ever experienced personally since I started playing in Set 3. Starting with Set 14, Cyber City, I think this is the one where you can hack and have like hack shops or whatever. It was cute, it was safe. I don't remember anything explicitly offensive or amazing about it. It was just okay, that's all I have to say. But then we get to Set 15, KO Coliseum, and this is gonna be a doozy. I'm gonna start out by saying I do not envy the creative team at Riot Games having a gun to their head, being forced to make a whole new set 3 times a year, basically an entire new game 3 times a year as deep as TFT. It's incredible that this game even worked. That being said, this shit was shit from beginning to end, and that's because basically nothing worked, and it was unbalanceable. The powers were unbalanceable. They bit off way more than they could chew, and it shows. And when they tried to fix or balance things, they just made it worse, or just straight up lied about what they did. Like they either shadow fixed things, or they said they fixed things that just straight up weren't fixed. So I'm just gonna go over things that I remember off the top of my head. Powers were the gimmick of Set 15, basically being devil fruits from One Piece. You put them on a unit, you get 2 of them throughout the game, and they really tried to put almost everything that's ever been in TFT into some of these powers. Like, any trait that you remember from back in the day, chances are it was in this in some way, shape, or form, which I appreciate. It was cool. The problem is that there were only a handful of good ones for each archetype of unit, so the delta between the one your carry needs and everything else was so big that if you just toggled on and off and just got unlucky on all of your power resets, you just got 8th. Monster Trainer Lulu is one of the coolest units they've ever made in my opinion, but it was just bugged to kingdom fuck. It fucked with the shops. The HP stacking just didn't work, which was really important because Rammus was a tank. Speaking of Rammus pissing bug, those who know.
Didn't they say they fixed the shit or no? Bro, what is going on this set, man?
It was bugged so many ways that it was eventually just neutered to a very harmless state, and then they just left it, which is really unfortunate. I hope they do something with that again in the future. The friggin' mech augments, the I'll be the head, I'll be the legs, just didn't work. And then they put out a patch saying, oh yeah, we made it so if you get the first one, you're guaranteed to see the other 2. Just didn't work.
Didn't they say they fixed the shit or no?
Thousands of people lost LP, including me. Lost LP because they thought it would work and they would get a free top 4. Never worked. Never got it. And then after the patch where they said they fixed it, they were like, no guys, we really fixed it this time. And then it still didn't work. And then after that, they were like, all right guys, we're just removing it.
Didn't they say they fixed the shit or no?
That's just like the epitome of this entire friggin' set, dude. Akali being literally untargetable for like 99% of the fight. Actually, one of the most toxic carries I've ever seen in the existence of this game. Colossal Udyr existing, but being RNG tied to powers. Lee Sin was really cool. You could like pick a trait that he is, and he had a unique power where he would count as +1 for whatever trait he was, so he was like 2 for it. But then there was a bug with him where if he died during combat, you would lose the extra trait, which is the difference between a gold and a silver, and then you just lose, for example. It just makes no fucking sense, dude. They introduced Destiny augments, which ended up being the best thing in the game until they nerfed them. Jinx being one of the best carries in the set, so much so that she was like the only carry I've ever seen in TFT where you literally didn't need to run her damage trait for her to get first. It's insane. To the point where if you watch a tournament towards the end of the set, there were like 6 professional players at the highest level of play. It's just 6 people forcing the same thing. And then Battle Academia, Yumi just being amazing the entire set, but being incredibly boring because it's just a vertical. And that's also the problem with the whole set philosophy, is that they wanted it to be simple with a complex mechanic in the powers, and they just made all the traits fucking verticals, which means that there's no flex play, and there's no flex play because if you wanted to pivot to a different comp, every comp is a vertical. If you're trying to pivot to something at like level 6 or 7, it makes it almost impossible to get the low-cost units you need for the vertical, and so you can't pivot to anything, so there's no flex play, everything's just a static vertical. It was fucking lame. There was an augment tailoring bug on 2.1, and then they shadow fixed it. Only a few people knew about it, by the way, and they exploited it, and then after they shadow fixed it, they bitched about it on Reddit, and then Riot reverted the shadow fix to appease the people bitching and exploiting about it on Twitter and Reddit. What are we talking about? They ended up removing Socialite, Stretchy Arms, because it was broken on GP and Viego. Shadow Clone got removed too, I think. Fusion Dance was fucking bugged half the time. They removed it. I think towards the end they also removed Ludens, because if you just got Ludens Ari, it was a first. But it was only good on her. I don't understand. But that also leads me to the artifacts, and holy fuck, artifacts were a problem in this set. There were so many specific synergies with artifacts, and so many openers with artifacts where like the whole lobby got them, that led to the entire lobby being decided on 2-1, and I am not exaggerating. If you got Flickerblade, which I literally never got once the entire set, that's a first. You put it on Ashe, whatever, it's a first. Ludens Ari, like I said, first. Sniper's Focus Gwen, I don't remember if that was actually bugged. You got first with that. Manazane Karma, Shadow Clone, first. RFC on GP and Viego when they took out Stretchy Arms, boom. Silvermere Dawn Jace, that's another greatest of all time. That shit was insane. But the most baffling of all, in my opinion, the fucking $3 Garen with Innervating Locket, 1-cost unit. You just tech in a 1-cost unit, and he's the best tank of all fucking time somehow. I'm not exaggerating, dude. Garen 2 with Innervating Locket was the best tank of all time. It's insane. And they let that shit rock for so long. It's absurd. And once again, this is just all the shit I remember off the top of my head. I'm sure there's some big Google Docie somewhere with every single bug in the set that's like a billion fucking Epstein files long. But I'm done ranting about it. I just want to end with, I do not envy the job of these guys. Like I said at the beginning, they dropped the ball with this. Everybody knows it. They know it. But they picked it up with set 16. And set 16 has the potential to be one of the best sets of all time, in my opinion. Set 16 Lore and Legends is the current set of TFT leading into 2026. TLDR, it's a basic set with no skins or anything, but the gimmick is that they have 100 units instead of the usual like 50 to 60, with the extra ones being unlockable via quests. But there are a few problems with it. I'm not going to spend more time bitching about it, and I think it's a really good jumping in point if you're at all curious about the game, because once again, TFT is genuinely one of the greatest games of all time. It does so much, so many layers, it's amazing. But in conclusion, as a 2025 whole, TFT was just kind of okay. You have set 14 in the beginning, where it's just inoffensive, mid, whatever. Set 15, worst set of all time. Set 16, one of the best sets of all time. So you average that out to kind of the middle or middle lower, it is what it is. The important part is that they learned their lesson from 15, and 16 is really good, and I hope they keep it going moving forward. MEGABONK is the ultimate time waster. You got a goofy art style, satisfying movement, and enough unlocks to keep you coming back. That being said, when you finally unlock everything, the game gets pretty stale. I mostly played when the game came out, and it only had 2 maps, one of which the desert being literally just a flat plain. Some of the characters also feel like mega ass, especially the ogre, who felt literally unplayable at the time. There are also some situations where enemies will literally spawn right on top of you or right in front of you, which leads to situations that feel genuinely unfair or unavoidable. There's also something to be said about Survivor and Pick 3 slop, and this game is no exception. Personally, I prefer things like Isaac, where you can just use as many things as you come across, instead of just picking 3 and upgrading it the whole time. But I won't pick on the game too much. At the end of the day, it is made by one guy, so it's all good. And it did receive a significant content update recently, so I will come back to it eventually. It took me around 40 hours to do everything when the game came out, and for $10 you could do way worse with your money. Would recommend. I played Hollow Knight for the first time like a week or so before Silksong came out, and I was even a few days late to Silksong because I was finishing doing the Pantheons and all that endgame shit, and it was great. So naturally my expectations were really high going into Silksong, especially since this was like the most hyped game of all time next to GTA 6. Silksong maintains its fantastic art design and music by Christopher Larkin. He's the man. The boss design is mostly an improvement. I found the first game to be a little too safe and easy, but this game hits the mark on boss design pretty well in my opinion. Funny voice lines aside, Hornet is the reason you play this game. Having a voiced protagonist this time around adds a new layer to the story, and the kit at your disposal gives you so many ways to approach combat. You got stances, you got rings, you got tools, you got magic. It is much more mechanically dense than Hollow Knight 1, and it's the best thing about this game by far. That being said, if you've been online at any point in time after this game came out, you know that there's been some discourse about it. Look, there are just way too many things that work against the game or are just plain unfun for the fuck of it. In no particular order. Normal enemies and environmental damage dealing 2 hearts, and also you start with only 5 hearts, so when you get your first heart upgrade, it doesn't even matter because you're still taking the same amount of hits to die, generally speaking. Why is there a currency for buying things, but also a currency for your tools? Why don't the enemies in the gauntlets you have to fight throughout the game drop tool shards? This leads to situations where you die over and over and over again, you run out of tool shards, and then you have to go somewhere else and farm some dickheads for 20 minutes. Like, tool shards as a concept is just so stupid. Like, if you're doing a first playthrough and you're stuck on one of the gauntlets, it's just hell, because all of a sudden you'll just lose access to half your kit. Why are like 80% of the enemies in this game flying dickheads? Oh wait, it's for the dive kick and the grapple hook. That's fine, those are fun to use in combat. Except the dive kick feels like absolute horsecock. It just feels so off compared to pogoing from Hollow Knight 1, which was pretty perfect. They also added a new mantle mechanic, which is somewhat automatic, and it's fine, but it leads to some situations where you want to run off a platform and then immediately duck under the platform you just ran off of, and you'll just automatically clamber on it and get hit by the thing above you. Like IMO, that should be a 100% manual thing, and it's kind of baffling that that's not an option. Same thing with floating. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that in a version of the game before it came out, you could hold A to just float, but at some point they removed it, and now you have to like double jump and press A. Like, it used to be in the game, the one that felt good, and now it's just not. I have no clue. And also, they made a point to add like real quote-unquote side quests to the game, but most of them are just awful fetch quests with no depth. Killing the same guy 20 times, that's a quest, really? And you have to do all of these to get Act 3. It really just seemed like they wanted to correct the complaints about the first game where there was nothing to spend your money on, and they were like, alright, here's a bunch of money sinks. But dude, the most tilting, unfun thing about this game that makes me never want to replay it, and I'm being so serious, is that there are so many doors in this game where you just have to wait for them to open, and there's screen transitions. In the lava area, in the citadel, all over the place. This is a game in a genre where you want to move fluidly and just kind of speed run if you know what you're doing. And in Hollow Knight 1, it felt great. But in this one, they just added all these stupid doors and all these vents and all this shit, steam, all these different things that you have to just wait for instead of being able to just hold forward and jump through it. It's baffling. And aside from nitpicks like that, very quickly, the areas just seem kind of uninspired in this game, I'm not gonna lie. Some of them are standouts for sure, but like almost every area in Hollow Knight 1 was jaw-droppingly beautiful, and I loved everything about it. The map in that game is so good. But in this one, most of the areas are pretty forgettable. I don't know, man. And the Metroidvania stuff was also pretty lazily used. Like, the grapple hook is pretty cool, but most of the places you have to use it are, like, very obvious. And yeah, you can use them in combat, which is also really fun, but, like, as far as traversal goes, this is pretty standard. Anyway, I know I'm bashing on the game quite a bit, but it's still, like, a good game, for sure. I like Hollow Knight 1 better. I 100%ed it, but this game I did not 100%. After I beat it, I used a save analyzer I found to see how much I missed, and I missed a decent chunk of stuff. After I beat Act 3, I kinda just didn't care, and I'm normally somebody that likes to do everything that I can before I beat a game. But like, there's just so much annoying shit in this game that I didn't feel compelled to do it. When that DLC comes out, I'll undoubtedly come back and 100% it in the hopes that my issues are addressed, but I genuinely like Hollow Knight 1 more, and I played them back to back. Still a good game, but it just works against itself in so many ways, unfortunately. Doom: The Dank Ages is a 2018 game in the Doom series, but also a prequel to Doom 2016. What I appreciate about the modern Doom games is that each one is intentionally distinct. 2016 is a very balanced experience, and it's honestly my benchmark for a single-player shooter. Eternal is like if 2016 got cranked up to 11. It's a high-octane adrenaline overdose, and while it asks a lot of the player, if you answer in kind, you'll get way more back. Admittedly, though, this style wasn't for everybody, and id answered with Doom: The Dank Ages. Slower swap speeds, chunky weapons, a shield, bosses akin to Souls games. The game's identity is clear, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Most of my problems with Doom: The Dark Ages stem from your options. The game kinda just wants you to pick one weapon that you like, and then supplement the rest with your melee and shield ability. And this is mostly fine. The shield and melee abilities are all pretty fun. But unfortunately, the weapons, and especially their upgrades, are painfully boring this time around. Take a look at the accelerator and its upgrades. Wow, that sure is a percentage increase. How about the super shotgun, aka one of the most iconic weapons in gaming history? Wow, that sure is a percentage increase. I personally ended up gravitating towards the Impaler and the Pulverizer because their upgrades feed into an actual identity, but I also found myself going full brain off and just one-shotting fucking everything with the chain shot. Look, there's nothing wrong with having simpler options for people that want it, but when most of the upgrades are uninspired like this, it really just leads you to using a weapon until you get bored of it, not because of what the weapon actually does. It's like picking your favorite color at the end of Mass Effect 3. But it's not just the weapons. The performance in this game is also not the best. You could get 200 FPS on a toaster in Eternal in 2016. Those are two of the best optimized games I've ever played. But fast forward to the Dank Ages, and in their infinite wisdom, they decided that the fast-paced first-person shooter should have forced ray tracing on. I have a 3080 Ti, and I went from getting 300 FPS in 2016 in Eternal to getting like 70 FPS in this game. And personally, for a first-person shooter specifically, if I don't get like 100 FPS minimum, it feels like shit. I hate forced ray tracing like this, but it really has no place in a game like this at all, in my opinion. It's so baffling. But the worst performance is not the only thing that makes me feel like I'm playing underwater, because they also decided to have forced slow-mo on fucking everything in this game. I know that they eventually added options for this, but on launch I ended up downloading a mod that lets you customize the slow-mo modifier. And if that mod didn't exist, I probably would have dropped the game. I'm being so serious. There is slow-mo after everything in this game. You parry something slow-mo, you melee something slow-mo, you finish something slow-mo. It is everywhere, and it slows the game to a crawl, and I understand the point of it. Like I said, this game's identity is being slower and more deliberate. And the purpose of the slow-mo, in my opinion, seems to be, okay, you did the thing, now assess your surroundings and figure out what to do next. That's fine, but guess what? You already did this. In 2016 and Eternal, that thinking space was used when you finished an enemy in the previous games. But instead of forcing slow-mo on you, it was just a little cutscene that was like a second and a half of you snapping a guy's neck, and then you're like, okay, I have a little time to breathe, what do I do? And then you're right back in the action. With this, it just feels like you're underwater, and it's so corny. The story in this game is also mega ass. The story in Doom has never been something to write home about. In 2016 and Eternal, they make a point to make fun of it.
I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.
But in this game, it takes itself seriously, and it's just weird. Nobody is playing Doom for the story, I promise you. You know what else people aren't playing Doom for? Unskippable nonsense. The friggin' turret sections, dragon levels, mech levels, all this shit. It's just so painfully mindless and unfun. I don't know how this ever made it into the game, especially the dragon and mech sections. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, those are made for fucking toddlers. I'm pretty sure the most downloaded mod for the game is something that lets you just skip those levels when you're doing a playthrough. These levels are the sole reason that I haven't really replayed the game since I beat it. I'm not playing Doom to ride around on an epic dragon and watch him do a 4-second animation every time I get off it. And I'm definitely not playing Doom to punch demons in a mech like I'm a 7-year-old playing with action figures. I'm good on that. It's just so baffling, the design decisions in this game. And the cherry on top is that the music Sugakaki. I can't remember a single song from this. And even though I'm complaining about the game a lot, the game is still good. It just has a lot of baffling decisions that I think they've addressed post-launch. I'll go back and replay it at some point, but I 100%ed it. I'm good on it until some DLC comes out. I went into Nightreign expecting a marriage between my two favorite genres, but what I ended up with was an Elden Ring efficiency simulator. I didn't vibe with Elden Ring Nightreign at first. Getting gangbanged by Tricephalos and placing too much emphasis on the roguelike elements left a sour taste in my mouth. But once I made the conscious effort to put those issues aside and focus on efficiency, I ended up falling in love. Getting good at this game is not just a test of your boss knowledge, it's about being a fucking ADD crack addict. You gotta be able to open your map, come up with the best routing possible as fast as possible, because every second counts, and this is possible thanks to the enhanced movement options in the game. They basically just added the sprint and mantle from Sekiro, and it feels great here. But personally, the game didn't really click until the Undertaker started licking shit off the walls. That was kinda hype. That being said, the game still has that typical FromSoft jank, and since this is the first time they've done a strict multiplayer game, it's got some weird quality of life issues. Why is there no voice chat or in-depth pinging in my game that is solely about choosing where to go? Why can't I see if my teammates have their ults up? Why can't I see if my teammates have a stone key? How come if I get hit by an attack in 2025, it buffers my roll from fucking COVID? All of this leads to Nightreign being a very frustrating game to play solo, but with a group of friends, it's genuinely really fun to try and learn and optimize. I'm also happy to report that this game did only get better with time. They improved the relic options and filtering so you can make builds easier, and the addition of dormant power relics let you snipe whatever weapon class you're looking for, so you can actually make some real builds now, such as Fist Raider or Claw Iron Eye. It's really cool. The new Deep of Night mode, which is basically hard mode, lets you have 3 extra relic slots for even more customizability. The new map, characters, and bosses are all fantastic, with the Dreglord being one of the best fights in the game and the enhanced Balancers fight being probably the biggest spectacle in the game. That shit is insane. And all they need to do is just keep adding cool characters, add all the weapons from the game, add all the bosses from every game. Like, the roadmap is very clear, and if they continue to do that and fix some quality of life, then this game could be an all-timer. Big fan. And the worst game of the year is... yeah, you got it. Monster Hunter Wilds is the worst game of 2025 because I spent over $100 fucking on the deluxe edition of Monster Hunter Wilds. I want to start out by saying that I'm going to be mostly discussing how the game was at launch. After grinding Fatalis and Worlds for 8 hours straight, blind, undergeared, and at MR 60-ish, I finally managed to kill it with less than 1 hour before Wilds release. I booted up Wilds and was rewarded with literally 15 minutes of black screens, gameplay ranging from 10 to 30 FPS, and I have a 3080 Ti by the way, and a fucking blue screen of death upon closing the game. The performance issues with this game have been talked about to death, so I won't regurgitate that shit here. Just know that this is the most embarrassing PC performance of all time, not named Jedi Survivor. And even if I was factoring in patches from 2025, they didn't even fix the game until 2026. This shit was just unacceptable. Furthermore, the demanding performance doesn't even come close to what the game offers graphically. This game legitimately looks worse than World and Rise and even GU for that matter. World is still a great looking game to this day, and Rise and GU have that distinct portable game art direction. The monsters in the game do indeed look fantastic, but everything that isn't a monster is borderline PS2 level. Bruh. The game also has this disgusting forced green filter over everything. I have to run like 4 graphic mods just to make the game's colors not look horrendous. And speaking of colors, HDR also just doesn't work for me. It works for like 10 minutes and then it just glitches, flashes white on my screen on and off until I toggle it, so I can't even enjoy that. So the game runs like trash and it looks like trash. Monster Hunter has been great for one overarching reason. and that is fighting the monsters. Not the story, not the characters, it's the raw gameplay. And I'm happy to say that when you actually get to fight stuff in the game, it does feel amazing despite the frame rates. Offset attacks are always satisfying and reward moveset memorization. Power clashes make you feel awesome in a defensive way, and stuff like the dual blades perfect dodge is all great. And I know this is a bit of a hot topic, but I personally think focus mode is a great addition, even if the wounding system is a bit too easy to take advantage of. Yes, there is less emphasis on positioning, but if focus mode wants to be Wild's thing, like the Clutch Claw was World's thing, and not in every game moving forward, then I think there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is actually getting to the gameplay. Low rank in this game sucks more balls than Count Ball's Succula. It is riddled with modern AAA slop sections, forced slow walking, so many walk and talks, don't get too far away when you walk more than 2 feet away from the NPC, scenes that are supposed to be thrilling chase sequences in reality require you to literally do nothing. I'm not exaggerating, I put down my controller in some of these sections, and they literally just autocomplete with 0 input. I feel like I wasn't even holding my controller for the majority of low rank. More and more modern games keep doing this non-gameplay interactive cutscene shit because they only make these games with a first playthrough in mind, and it shows. I truly dread replaying so many modern games these days because of all this forced and skippable bullshit, and Wilds is no exception. Even if the endgame content is fine now, it doesn't really excuse low rank being a fucking guided safari ride where every monster dies in 2 minutes. As a quick anecdote, one time I was at a friend's house, we booted up a game, and my friend had the controller. The main menu typically said, press any button, and my man looks fucking down at the controller, presses A, and then looks back up. That is who I think low rank in Monster Hunter Wilds is designed for. And the story of low rank isn't really anything to write home about either. All the mediocre voice acting performances in tandem with the non-existent lip syncing leads to dialogue that no one gives a fuck about. It's a shame because they did in fact get some good voice actors like Patrick Seitz, but his performance is so monotonous because he emphasizes every other word. And I don't mind the guy, he's great in Fire Emblem, youtube.com/JoeSillyFay by the way, but it's as if the Monstars came out of fucking retirement and sapped the voice acting talent from everybody involved with this game. Between him, your companions, and especially Nada, I ended up just switching to the Japanese voices, and now I don't want to plug my ears with live grenades anymore, so thanks Capcom. The only good thing I have to say about the story in this game is that the Guardian Arkveld OST lives rent-free in my head. That shit goes so hard, and there are some interesting beats regarding Arkveld in the story. I personally love subject matter that deals with things that should not be, like the artificial monsters in this game, so there's that. Beyond the story, Wilds is what I classify as a Starfield-like. Let me explain. When you're finally free to do what you want in the endgame, all it amounts to is navigating menus, spamming sleep until you find a quest with the rewards you want, and then letting your sacred just take you to the monster. They went through the trouble of handcrafting these biomes only for the optimal way to engage with it to be AFKing on Twitter to see who's in the Epstein files while your dog tracks the monster automatically. It also doesn't help that the sacred doesn't know what it's doing half the time. You have to dig through menus to make it work remotely properly because the sacred manual controls are defaulted to a setting that mimics auto mode. You cannot make this shit up. Then you save the investigation and repeat it 5 times, and then you never do it again. Gone are the days where you would get lost navigating the multi-layer forest and world or need to seriously grind a monster for that 1% drop. Everything's just given to you on a silver platter in this game. It really feels like this is more of a Monster Hunter simulator where the only thing that matters is getting into the hunt with as much speed and as little friction as possible. Alright, I'm just gonna rapid fire my last few complaints with the game. First of all, they straight up just lied about the significance of the pack mechanic and the alpha mechanic. It seemed really cool on paper and they emphasized it in the trailers a lot, but all it ended up being was 2 encounters with 2 species that were glorified tutorials for the Mega Shitter Bomb. Also, why did they decide to name this game Monster Hunter Wilds when the previous main game was also called Monster Hunter W? Also, there was a bug that literally tanked your FPS in proportion to how little DLC you own.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
Also, what the fuck is this? Also, this game sucks fucking Devil Joe cock. Look man, like I said, I'm putting Wilds as the worst game of 2025 based on its launch, and even if the performance was fine, the combination of the poor graphics, non-existent endgame of just fighting Arkveld over and over, and insufferable low-rank experience, it would still probably be the worst game of 2025. But on the bright side, the game is good now, minus low rank. I haven't played much since Title Update 2, but that was the first time I had legitimate fun with the game, and I know it's only gotten better. This game does have the potential to have the best roster in any game not named GU, and now that the performance is fixed and it's reportedly even playable on the Steam Deck, hopefully the expansion ties a nice bow on the game in the end.
And the game of the year is Mon Ami.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a masterpiece, and you probably don't need me to tell you that. I am now going to tell you why Expedition 33 is a masterpiece. Look, I knew this game was going to be special when the very first trailer dropped. That trailer made me think, there's no way this game will actually look this good, right? It has to be pre-rendered for the trailer, right? And then actually delivers one-to-one. And then as it kept going on, and the story beats, and the music, and the voice acting, and everything, I was like, alright, this has to be the best game ever, right? And I'm happy to say my expectations were met and exceeded tenfold. Expedition 33 has potentially the strongest opening hook in all of gaming. Most stories have to work to make you believe what they've laid out, but 33 is immediately and effortlessly gripping, relatable, and believable. Very quickly, I'm now realizing that my recording for Expedition 33 is 33 minutes and 33 seconds long. I swear on everything that is holy, I did not plan that. That's insane. Anyway, the first words of any story are among the most important words in any story. I had to triple check what the opening words in this game were, and in doing so I found this cool website called Dawnborn, which actually just transcribes a ton of popular games. Definitely check it out. But anyway, the opening words in Expedition 33 are,
if you're gonna give someone flowers, you should probably do it before they wither and die.
What, the flower? Or Sophie?
Ooh, dark. Sophie would approve.
The themes of death, art, and escapism all truly hit home for me, as after my dad died a few years ago, I was stricken with intense health anxiety, panic disorder. All of these things amplified my depression, among other things that I won't get into here, but needless to say, I needed a story like this. This opening exchange of dialogue does a perfect job at alluding to the nature of this world, as Sophie's life is casually compared to that of a flower. Later, Sophie says,
I'm not selfish enough to bring others into our doomed world. And it destroyed my relationship. The person I loved the most. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'd like to spend this moment with him.
Several times now, in just this opening, the writers are able to convey believable issues like the ethicality of having children in a world like this, which is what ultimately made these two 30-plus-year-olds part ways. Wanting children or not is a very common breaking point in relationships in the real world, but is enhanced due to the context of Lumiere being a world on a timer. Simple, not flashy, but incredibly effective. The writing in 33 is chock full of stuff like this, double meanings, etc. that you notice on a second run, but thankfully aren't completely obvious like most others trying to do the same. Expedition 33 has finally dethroned Nier Automata as my favorite soundtrack of all time. Damn near every track in this is just so jaw-droppingly well put together I can't help AFKing to let them play. If I'm shuffling on Spotify, my facial expression literally changes when I hear the first notes of anything Lorien Testard made. This soundtrack truly runs the gambit. It has sad songs, it has upbeat songs, it has jazzy songs and goofy songs, battle themes that sound nothing like what a typical JRPG battle theme should sound like, yet it still works. The tracklist is filled to the brim with quality songs, commonly over 10 minutes of vocals. Yet songs like one of my favorites, Dolorosa, are literally only played for the first 20 seconds before you even hear a vocal, by the way, and then the actual song is never heard. It's beautiful. Shill's theme is another one that I don't remember ever hearing in the actual game, but is still fantastic. Lorien Testard pumped out non-stop bangers for this soundtrack, but didn't feel the need to shove them down your throat. That's the GOAT right there. There are so many things about this game that make me feel like the game was made specifically for me. Striking art direction that will stand the test of time. Characters that look and act like actual people instead of anime characters. A story that is fantastical yet grounded and relatable where everything makes sense. A combat system that marries the turn-based RPGs of old with the more active moveset memorization style of new. If you say anything about Paper Mario, I will punch you in the mouth. A soundtrack with heavy emphasis on vocals, piano, and strings, all of which I played myself during my life, and foreign vocals, which is the cherry on top for me, but also a soundtrack where damn near every song tells a story that you can feel, even if you don't understand the French lyrics that literally spell the narrative out. After one of the most famous and recognizable songs in the game, Une vie à t'aimer, plays, which loosely translates to A Life to Love You, and the cutscenes that followed, I had a theory about the meaning of it all, listened to it again in its entirety, and was basically proven right about the whole game. The way that these puzzle pieces of the narrative fit in perfectly via a piece of music's title, the lyrics, the way that the singers sing it with the dualities of it all and them yelling at each other. When all of that clicked, I swear to God, I almost cried. This shit is beautiful in every way. Every single thing about this game is like a 9 out of 10 minimum for me. My singular complaint about the game is the difficulty curve, mainly the enemy HP values not being able to keep up very well at all with your power level. Expert mode only makes enemies hit harder, no extra HP, no extra moves, no tighter parry or dodge window, and in a game where you can realistically take 0 damage if you play well, like in a Souls game, the main way to increase difficulty is to increase HP and enemy damage. But in 33, when you're like halfway into Act 2, you can basically just one-shot anything with little effort. It doesn't take a genius or a YouTube guide to slap on every damage multiplying Lumina and one-shot everything with Maya. The toughest challenges in the game can be one-shot easily, which led me to using an HP mod for the last half of my playthrough. The game is just not balanced around the way that I personally like engaging with games, which is trial and error, learning everything about the movesets, limit testing, and getting one shot if I fail. So my choices were intentionally gut my characters and stop leveling up to avoid steamrolling everything, or downloading an HP mod to make it harder while letting me still engage with the wonderful systems in play. And to me, the choice was obvious and I do not regret it. But I do still acknowledge it as a genuine flaw in the game, and yes, they did eventually add an HP modifier in the game natively, but the problem with that is that it's only available after a certain point in the game and not the whole time. And the part where it's introduced is a bit after I started having real issues with steamrolling everything, so personally I would still probably use an HP mod externally. But that's just me. And I know I said that was my singular complaint, but very quickly and without spoilers, I felt that parts of the ending left me feeling misled. I want to do a full video on the game in the future, so I'll go into detail about it there, but yeah, those who know. But anyway, this game is a genuine masterpiece. I think it is not only game of the year, I think it is game of the generation. I genuinely believe this is going to be like this generation's Ocarina of Time, FF7, even something like RE4, the original, where it's just like so many people's favorite games, incredibly influential. It is just that good. Please play Expedition 33. If you somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, I appreciate you. It's my first video on this channel, but I've been making videos since I was like 11, recording Pokemon Wi-Fi battles with a friggin' webcam. But I'm also currently making videos on Fire Emblem at youtube.com/JoeSillyFay, so if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if this format is too long, or if it should be split up into different videos, or if you don't give a shit at all, definitely let me know. Have a good one. Bye. But the real best game from 2025 was Garfield Kart 2. Okay, bye.